5 years, and here is Squawk Box co-anchor Andrew Ross Sorkin's prediction about the auto industry.
Over the next 25 years, car sharing is going to radically transform not only transportation, but the larger economy. Every car is only used for about 1 hour a day. What happens if that car can be shared with many different people? What does it do to the number of cars that need to be produced? The energy used? Car insurance. This is already happening. We're seeing it in the form of Zipcar, Uber, Lyft. We're all going to be using apps to share our own car.
My dear friend Andrew Ross Sorkin is here with more, along with Lauren Fix, who writes about the car industry. And before we get started, we want to know what you folks at home think about this as well. That's our question of the hour. Is car sharing the way of the future? Log on to cnbc.com/vote. You can vote right now while you're listening to us talk about this. And thank you all for joining us. Andrew, when we did our predictions a few weeks ago, the producer said to me, you know, Andrew loves Uber. What do you think? What? I know you use it a lot.
Right.
You're in New York City. You use it a lot. But why do you think that a service like that just transforms the automotive industry?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of trends we need to think about. The first trend is the major move across this entire country, from the country, if you will, to the city, which is to say that major metropolitan areas are where at least 80% of the population are going directionally. I don't believe, and let me stipulate from the outset, that in rural markets, the Ubers of the world or car sharing rather, are going to become the next great thing. That is not where this is going to happen. But in major metropolitan markets, there is no question that when you think of the benefits of not needing a parking spot, of not paying for gas, and you can go down the list, it becomes quite clear. And I've had this experience now personally where I use it. But then you need to, you know, fast forward 5 years, 10 years, where we actually maybe do finally get to what Google hopes will be driverless cars, and the entire dynamic will change, and the economics will change. And so, to me, this is a steady march of technology that cannot be stopped, in fact.
There's one thing, Lauren, that I think we need to focus in on is the car sharing itself. You know, it's one thing for us to give up owning a car and rent one a lot from a professional driver, basically. It's another if we're all driving for each other. How would the insurance industry have to respond if you're basically just going to decide that you're now car sharing?
Well, first off, I think that if you're living in New York City, you're kind of living in a bubble, because they thought the same thing with the ride share, the city bikes. And I live part-time in New York City, and I do use Uber, and I also use taxi cabs. And I'll tell you what, if you ever look on your app and it's raining outside or it's rush hour, and I was just there during the holiday week, and I will tell you, it's times 1.3, times 1.5, times 2. It gets very expensive to use Uber. So, and besides that, I think living in New York City is great for the people that live there. It's a great option, but it's not going to affect the auto industry. Look at the total sales. We're growing 16.6 million light truck and car sales for this year, for 2014. 2015 projections of 17 million. They're not building these cars with the thoughts that everyone's going to ride share. And to be honest, I have zero interest in sharing my ride with somebody else.
Let me stipulate one other thing. The idea is not that car sales are going to go to zero.
Right.
The idea is that if you are a two-car family, it is very possible that you decide that, and you live in the suburbs of a major city, you may decide, you know what, I'm going to become a one-car family. Instead of driving to the train station, having that train station, that train car, if you will, that I'm going to Uber every morning and have a carpool.
But Andrew, are we going to be hopping rides with each other? Do you think that's what's going to happen? Is person-to-person car sharing?
Carpooling is the word. I'm less convinced that we're going to have a lot of that. You're seeing Uber, by the way, try to do that now, and Lyft and others, and I'm not sure that is going to be the wave of the future. But I am convinced when we do get to some form of a closer to driverless car, if not driverless car completely, that there's no question that people will be hopping in cars. It becomes more complicated when you yourself are the driver.
Let me just point out our viewers. Rarely do we have this much of a divergence.
I know, I'm losing.
Yes,
I'm losing here.
Look at that. I mean, that's pretty strong, with 83% saying they don't see ride sharing in the future.
They don't see. I'm sorry that they don't see the future.
My argument when we were doing the predictions was, and this was specifically on Uber, you know, we're in a honeymoon period. It's a novelty, and we know what happens when novelties wear off. Then You know, once that wears off, then there needs to be a business model that can compete effectively with other services that will come into the fray at the same time. And by the way, it's not lost on the car makers. BMW is starting a service like this as well, I was reading the other day. So, you know, ride sharing, it will be here as a niche market, but I don't see it as a transformative kind of a technology.
But if you think it's transformative, if you believe it's transformative in major metropolitan areas, and you believe the trend line suggests that Americans are moving to major metropolitan areas, it's sort of hard to fight the numbers.
I just wonder, Andrew, if the economics are now moving in the other direction, because we're just talking about household formation, which may be happening, and also the low price of gas, and maybe now we're going to witness a new resurgence of people leaving urban areas and going to the suburbs.
Well,
that's probably more likely, actually, because you're looking at where people are living. If you look at most of the cities in America, very few are moving to the city. People want this to spread out. They don't want to raise their kids in the city. They want to raise them out in the suburbs like they did. I mean, look at the sales of crossover utility vehicles is a great example to look at.
Unfortunately, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's just a falsehood to suggest that directionally, from a trend line, the numbers are clear and factual that people are moving to major cities.
I can't.
This is not even a debatable issue.
We just determined, though, that when the millennials start starting families, they're going to leave the city. Right?
I bet it's starting to happen in the other direction. Andrew, I'm going to the numbers after the segment.
We will do that, and we can redo this entire election on Twitter and see how it goes.
Also keep in mind that a lot of these rideshare cars, and I can't tell you how many Zipcars I've rented, how many Ubers I've ridden in cabs, check engine lights, all kinds of safety things. I'm not riding in an unsafe car. My car is safe. I take care of it. Most people do. But keep in mind, a lot of these vehicles, take a look at the dash. All the lights that are on, ABS lights, brake lights, cracked windshields. You know what?
Okay.
I'll take my own vehicle. Thank you.
There you go. And just for the record, Your Honor, we just closed the polls. 82% saying no to car sharing in the future there.
So many people without vision.
Right.
So many people
there you
without vision.
We have to listen to you,
Thank you,
Andrew. Thanks, bud.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Heading to the close here, 30 minutes left in the trading session, and we still have minus signs for the major average.